Federalism is autonomy, the code of conduct, roles and responsibilities and concept of leadership. It's to do with national bodies, national professional standards, and professional recognition and higher qualifications, such as the ones that we're doing. On the suggestions that we made, the first part is read and respond. And that refers to chapter 28 of the e-book for teaching and learning in higher education. That is down on the Moodle for you to pick up and read. That will give you some ideas of the parts of the assignment that you need to cover for this element of the unit. Yeah. So you need to define, and again, that means you need to actually list them and put down what they are and how they affect you and the way that you deliver your program. The second part is explain ways in which professional values influence your own practice. And this is coming back to what I said before. The whole of this is about you and the way you operate within the school where you are. Yeah. So really, you can then, the piece that you write on there is explain your response in the task. 1.1, an example from, the task at 1.1 will lead you into this and give you an example of your own area of teaching. Right. On the other side, it says the impact of professional values. Yes. Do you meet organisational policies and procedures? Audits of competence. Right. Teachers, quality of teaching and learning, the expectation for standards, establishing and sharing best practice, updating your own specialist knowledge and skills and working to current awarding body or awarding organisation requirements. Right. Targets for raising personal standards, CPD, and improving your own professional qualifications, which of course what this programme is about. Right. So yes. If you've got any case studies where you've used this in your own school and you've got any documentation, that can be added in to actually show or demonstrate, if you like, and give examples of where you're meeting these standards within the place that you work. Yeah. Sometimes if you've had internal meetings, the material or the wordings for that meeting, or minutes, if you like, of that meeting, can be used again to show where you are, to help explain how your own values influence, or how those values influence your practice and in your own area of specialism. Yes. So, if you keep it in mind all the time that you were talking about yourself and what you actually do, that's the thing to keep in mind all the time. A lot of the students I've found were about this because they were looking at it from a political point of view. Sorry?
Yes, yes, sir.
They were looking at it from a purely theoretical point of view and not from the viewpoint of yourself and where you are. And if you do that, it actually becomes much easier because then you've got evidence to put in front of the programme to say, yes, this is what I do, and this is an example of it. Yeah? So I'm going to move on to on this one. Is rather lengthy. It's got a lot to say for itself, but quite honestly, again, it is a fairly. Have you got somebody in with you? Hello?
Hello? Sir.
Have you got somebody in the background with you?
Yeah, actually, there's a problem in the voice now.
Ask them to find out.
I couldn't understand in the last moment.
Okay.
repeat second part now, please.
Yeah, okay. Most of the time when you're teaching, you look at... Hello?
Hello, yes.
Yeah. One of the things that you need to look at is where the operation that you're doing now in your school meets these factors that it's asking for in the unit.
Yes.
Social factors, raising the standards, promoting widening participation. People not in education and employment. Have you dealt with the NEET group at all?
Yes, sir.
You've got some people in the NEET group, have you?
Right.
Where has it gone?
Actually, there's a problem in the voice now, so it's not that clear.
It's not very clear.
No. Sometimes the breaking voice, like full
Right,
sentence is not clear. Yeah.
I'm missing what you're saying for the noisy people in the background.
No, no one is there.
Right.
Yes.
The NEET group are students that have come in from, they weren't in any education or employment or in training.
Yes.
And these groups are underrepresented naturally because they've missed out on a lot of mainstream schooling. And when they come in at this level, they've got complete difficulty using the correct English. And this is where you come in as English tutor, yeah? To actually get through to that group and actually engage them in learning. So it's a good group to work with. I work with a group in the 19 to 24-year-old section who missed out most of the schooling, a lot of it, and I'd come back in. They'd literally been sent from the the Dole office for the job. They were sent in for additional training because it felt like it would help the job getting if they could get a better standard of English and mathematics as well. And I took that group for a year and learned, or had to learn ways in which to engage them. And it was quite interesting because it turned out that a lot of them had been given wrong information when they were younger, and basically it turned them off education per se.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of within this group. It brings up other factors which are here now, political factors, economic growth and prosperity agenda, community regeneration, and analysis of educational policies in terms of ideological underpinning, influence of national events or educational policy, and national and devolved government responsibility for economic skills development, the EU, and government legislation. All those are almost all covered when you're actually teaching this group, because it's part of the economic growth. The government put money into that section, and those are political factors. The prosperity, people with little education will definitely not be in a position to get a job. So they'll be in that poverty trap for years and years unless they can break through. And education is obviously the way through to achieving that. So there are all those factors that are mentioned here basically are covered when you're teaching this group. A lot of the groups in that area, and this is anybody above the age of 16 when formal education ceases. There are various levels at which they come back on, and the government, or the last government, interventions to basically bring those people back into education, and they could be any age. There were no age limit on it, so I've had groups of people in their 30s and 40s who could hardly read or couldn't even count change. The programs that were put forward to actually cover a lot of this were down, in fact, to government and being able to access free education instead of having to pay. Now, 2.1, again, it's got read and respond again, so we can look at that we mentioned before, the e-book on teaching and learning in higher education. That will also cover that part of 2.1 as well. As I said to you last time, this unit amplification, which is probably as good as the e-book, to be quite honest, if we look at the unit application, that gives you some pointers about the areas you need to cover. It's very thorough, this. I mean, I'm not saying cover everything that's on there, but that you can select out of there. A lot of these are repeated if you look through. But if you look at what it says on there, that gives you some clear indication of the areas that you should be discussing. Yeah. And again, it's these define, explain. Those are quite straightforward. Now, when we get to 2.2, we've got analyse the impact of current education policies on curriculum and practice in your own area of specialism. Again, here you have to look or use your work, college, school, place policies to explain how curriculum development is impacted in your area of teaching. Example, start a new course or training program. What is the impact on the teaching well, I've missed out there. It should say resource requirements as well there. I'll actually put that in. If you've got an initiative for, like the group we just talked about now, where there is funding for it, then it does have an impact, of course, then on the teaching requirements and the resource requirements. And there's usually no problem in because of the group that you're actually teaching. But where that doesn't apply, if you're in a mainstream school or you know, a state school, then there will be limited funds, and your part of the education budget for that school will be a fixed amount. Yeah. Therefore, there'll be limited resources that you can use. Now, fortunately, the group that we discussed over here require far more resources, because you've got to be a lot more inventive in the way that you present the material. It's got to be a lot more sharing. In other words, you've got to get them involved and open discussion out and things like that. Now, to actually keep that flowing, you need something like videos or practical things they can look at and see. Those are highly required, because most of this group, if they're not audio learners, they won't sit and listen to it. They get bored very quickly and they shut up. So again, the amount of resources and ranges of resources that you need to use with that group are quite large. Whereas with a mainstream group, a lot more development of the work that they've already done is then requires, obviously, for yourself to produce less resources. And those are the things you need to talk about basically in that program there. Right. A lot of the, how shall I say this without being rude to the government, a lot of the things that are put in place are done for political reasons rather than educational ones, if you understand what I'm saying. And sometimes those clash with what's actually required. So if you've got that situation, by all means put that in. You know, if you don't agree with something or a situation that you've got that is wrong, then say it by all means in your program. This is what it's about. It's about you and your circumstances in the school that you're in. Because the problems that you will find in your school exist in every other school that you go into. I've met this many times. One of the things that I've tried to do is to try and change some of the attitudes of teachers within those schools, because they tend to, if there's a shortage of something that's definitely needed, then I've usually been down the ear of the either lead tutor or the head of school and said, look, you know, this can't occur. We need to do this or we need to do that. And sometimes that can annoy them, but it can also bring the resources forward that you need. Standing there and being acquiescent and just saying, yeah, okay, if we've got to do it like that, we've got to do it like that. It may work for the teacher, but it certainly doesn't work for the students. So yeah, you've got to stick your head above the parapet sometimes and say, look, this isn't good enough. We need to improve this. And
Yes.
the next one,
Yes.
look from right now. 3.1 is explain the roles of stakeholders and external bodies in educational training.
Stakeholders. All right.
Some of the time, again, we look at stakeholders. Who are they? People who've got some reason to be involved. External customers, I'm not sure who they are. Then you've got suppliers, materials and resources, the internal staff, the senior management, parents, of course, if you're in a school, the students themselves. In our case, awarding organisations are very much to the fore because the courses that we deliver belong to the awarding body, not to the college. So therefore, we have to, ideally, you need to identify their role and how important that is in the higher education, because they are the ones whose courses have been agreed by Ofsted. We merely deliver those courses to the standard that's being required. If you are in a senior school, then of course employers and further education providers, training providers, are involved. Because I used to teach a group in final year, and some of those would be going on to college, some would be going into higher education and aiming to go on to university, and other parts of the group, lower achievers, or a group that wanted to get an apprenticeship and go through the basic engineering programs, electrical programs, and things like that, or the construction trades. So we were involved with the career service, higher education colleges, and training providers to try and place those students, at least in their final year, for them to have a taste of what was involved. So the involvement with all those different people will vary depending on where you are. Obviously, if you're not in that position, you're aware of these other things and what they do, and you can just say so. But if you've got actual what shall I say? You've got actual experience of doing that, then by all means show it. Put that in as an example. And again, it'll cut down the amount of material you've got to write for yourself. Again, use the example of an awarding body like Pearson or indeed ATHE, who are doing this course. Say what the quality and curriculum agency is and what their role is in enhancing your teaching. Example, the use of training. How does it enhance your teaching? If you are going through a training program, one of the main things that I've found, as I've done different training programs all through my experience in education, it reinforces some of the things that you've forgotten about. That's one of the main things I've found from the courses that I've done, is that I can pick up everything that I've learned, and then you're working, you forget a lot of things. You go on to a course and think, well, I forgot about that. And of course, you do this and you do that. So it's a good reinforcement of your own professional capabilities. And also sometimes it can be a surprise. You can say, oh, well, I already knew that. But, again, these are just explanations, and if you can use an example of the standards or quality code in which you enhance or meet the standards you have. One of the things that you get with a lot of awarding bodies is this one that I'm looking at on the other side, of course, where it's giving these all these illuminations, I think they're amplification, sorry, of the unit. It gives you those pointers as a teacher to actually say, yeah, okay, we can do this. That's what I need to put in, and those are what then got designed into the curriculum, and of course, eventually your lesson plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, again, 3.3 is if you work in partnership with employers and other stakeholders. Are you in a position to do that? Are you in a position to have experience of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've got that experience, then use that in your reflection. Yeah. You can actually say, yeah, well, you know, we get involved and we do this, and just write whatever that it is that you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are issues here. I don't know whether have you ever dealt with placements where students go into a company? It may be in a workshop. Have you had any experience of that? Yeah. Who checks the risks?
Yes.
Of putting that student in. Who is responsible for checking those, taking those risks?
Is it due to the teacher?
It isn't. No. One of the things when I worked for a training provider a number of years ago, one of the qualifications I had was what they call Unit N, and that is the ability to assess premises for health and safety. And a lot of teachers do not understand this. They are not qualified to do that because obviously, unless you've got experience of a joinery shop or a fitting workshop or anything, or even a garage, yeah, you couldn't possibly know the risk, all the risks that would be involved in there, and therefore, someone from the education authority, or they used to borrow us from schools actually to go in to their placement programs and have a look at the actual company. Was it a safe place to put students in? Yeah. So again, those are issues that you can discuss in your explanation. A lot of the time, when it says vocational courses and progression routes, alternative learning routes, sometimes parents will try to, what shall I say? They'll try to push students sometimes down an academic route that they are not suitable for. You understand me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it can take quite a bit of discussion with the parents to actually convince them that perhaps that's not the best route for the young person. That these alternative routes are really good alternative routes, and they should look at them a little bit more rather than trying to push them into something they don't want to do, because usually that ends up not being successful. Parents quite a lot of time need some convincing of this. So yeah, it's part of your role, in fact, to actually discuss that and to give them the best advice. So again, if you've got individual experiences that you can use there, then by all means use those. It's a long time that people are going to have to work. At least they should enjoy what they're doing, and that's one of the points I've put to parents for a long time now. Yeah. Fortunately, I could use my own example as well. To give you some idea, I left school at 15 with no qualifications. I got an extremely good apprenticeship as an engineer, and I served 6 years of an apprenticeship from 15 to 21.
Yeah.
Now, in that time, I'd never done particularly well at school. I was good at maths and English.
Yeah.
And I gained my HND in mechanical engineering inside 4 years.
Yeah.
That was the difference, because it was something I wanted to do, instead of being pushed into doing something that I didn't want to do. So it just shows that there can be latent opportunity for students going down that route, and quite often parents, in fact, take quite a bit of persuading on there. So again, if you've got some idea of what you want to do now on that particular unit, those are the instances that you can use to put your script. A lot of the amplification on here, as I said, will go into Moodle shortly. It's not actually there yet. We've got a writer actually quantifying this and putting it down into a different schedule than this. Okay, are you happy with that?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm going to close the meeting this morning now.
Yes,
I will be on again on Wednesday at 11 o'clock, where we'll continue with 5.1. It's a fairly long unit, this, so I've split it into two.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wes.
I've recorded it again, so you should be able to access this from the Moodle as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh. Right, let's close all that down now. Close that down. No, that's not going to do this. Close that down. I've lost one of these. It shouldn't have muted.